Coming up on tonight's This Week in Politics, a South Dakota judge strikes down voter-approved recreational marijuana.
The real question I have in the back of my head is maybe our state model is wrong, but I always thought it was under God the people ruled. I didn't realize it was under God the courts ruled.
And then a blow to backers of medicinal marijuana. The Nome administration says they want to wait a year to get a proper framework for it into place.
It's really injury to insult. We've been in peer advocating year after year after year, presenting the same information every single time. The same group of people are there. They've heard it 100 times. They know what's at stake.
Also in peer, problems with the spread of COVID-19, at least 7 lawmakers now sickened, and confusion about why masks are worn in the state Senate, but not in the state House.
There's absolutely no reason to have one set of rules on one side of the building upstairs and another set of rules on the other side.
We've got a lot to cover from close to home. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Allen. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Politics here on KSFY. Before we get to those stories, we want to begin with the latest regarding the growing political battle involving the Biden administration's decision to rescind the federal license for the Keystone XL pipeline. A portion of that pipeline would run right through Hawken County, which is where Congressman Dusty Johnson hosted a roundtable discussion this week with residents and business owners personally affected in Phillips, South Dakota. The group discussed the current economic impact, as well as the money the area would expect to see if the project is finished. According to the CEO of the West Central Electric Co-op, that includes $4 million in state sales tax and roughly $2 million for schools in the area.
And so during the lifetime of the Keystone XL pipeline, there will be tremendous demand and a very long tail for oil products. And so this did not change the global demand. What it did is it changed where that Alberta oil is going to go, which is China is now going to be in the pole position. And it changed where we're going to be obligated to buy ours.
Johnson was joined by North Dakota Congressman Kelly Armstrong. Both support a bill to authorize the construction and operation of that pipeline. It would also declare that a presidential permit is not required. Now to the topic of marijuana here in South Dakota. Last November, state voters approved both recreational and medicinal marijuana. This week there was action involving both that is now leading to questions about the future of both. On Monday, a Hughes County court judge ruled that the recreational marijuana ballot measure was unconstitutional. The ruling voids the amendment that was set to legalize recreational marijuana by July 1st of this year. Judge Christina Klinger ruling the amendment contained more than one subject, which violates the state's one-subject rule requiring amendments to address only one topic at a time. The lawsuit against Amendment A was brought forth by Pennington County Sheriff Kevin Tome and South Dakota Highway Patrol Superintendent Rick Miller on behalf of Governor Nome. The governor said the decision, quote, protects and safeguards our Constitution, and that she is confident the South Dakota Supreme Court, if asked to weigh in, would come to the same conclusion. Backers of Amendment A tell us they are already preparing their appeal. That recreational marijuana decision came on Monday. On Wednesday, word of action involving the medicinal marijuana in the state, with Governor Nome releasing her plan to integrate medical marijuana into South Dakota. While the governor does say she will follow the will of the people where medical marijuana is concerned, she says it likely won't be available in South Dakota until July of 2022, 1 year after what the voter-approved measure called for. Here's Austin Goss.
Governor Kristi Noem's office officially contracted Cannabis Public Policy Consulting on January 19th, a week after the legislative session started, 77 days after IM-26 was passed overwhelmingly by South Dakotans. After talking with those consultants, she now says the state needs more time.
People spoke last November, and what this bill will do is it will create a committee to do that job, to do the research, and to get that completed by July 1st of 2022.
Gosh's bill would effectively nullify IM-26 and create a commission of legislators and other government officials to move medical marijuana forward. The bill calls for a new legalization date of July 1st, 2022, a full year more than what was called for in IM-26.
It kind of reminds me of the hemp bill. You know, we're going to get this done, we're going to work with you, but let's do it next year. Give us some more time. We're not quite ready for it. The state's not ready for this. Let's do it next year. You know, this kind of reminds me of that, and it is the same type of plant, and that's what worries me about this is where does this all lead to?
George Hendrickson of Sioux Falls is a longtime advocate for medicinal marijuana. His son Eli has health conditions that his doctors say could be aided by medicinal marijuana.
It's really injury to insult. We've been in peer advocating year after year after year, presenting the same information every single time. The same group of people are there. They've heard it 100 times. They know what's at stake.
The Hendrickson family will likely have to set their clocks for yet another wait.
He's a little child that wants a quality of life. And to push us off for another year when he's in a neurological decline is very scary for me.
And that was Austin Goss reporting for us tonight. When This Week in Politics continues here on KSFY, a measure to limit the death penalty in South Dakota is voted down. This as the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases among lawmakers in Pierre is on its way up. Welcome back to This Week in Politics here on KSFY. South Dakota lawmakers have voted down a bill that would have restricted the use of the death penalty here in the state. Senate Bill 98 would have limited the use of the death penalty to only cases where on-duty public safety officials are the victims. That measure was voted down 20-13 on the Senate floor. Also from the State House, a total of 7 South Dakota lawmakers have now been diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus. We know all 7 serve in the South Dakota House. Now, the State House is not requiring masks this session. The state Senate is. Members of the House Democratic Caucus have sent a letter to the House Speaker asking for masks to be required in the chamber.
There's absolutely no reason to have one set of rules on one side of the building upstairs and another set of rules on the other side. And it's really disheartening when you watch a group of people wear masks in one committee, and then the very next committee might be a House committee meeting and everybody takes their mask off.
We put the processes and procedures in place knowing that something would come up. And we made it a long ways without much happening, but then we had a few this week. And so we follow and are continuing to follow those processes that we set up.
By the way, this last week marked the halfway point for this year's South Dakota legislative session. In Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds has now dialed back all COVID-19 restrictions in that state. Gone are mask mandates and limits on how many customers bars and restaurants can serve at one time. The Iowa Department of Health says the governor did not consult with the department before making the decision. One central Iowa doctor says he doesn't understand why this decision was made. And a Democratic state lawmaker also says she questions why the Republican governor made this move when she did.
When the nurses and doctors in my clinic heard this news on Friday, they were dumbfounded. And one of the nurses even said that she felt like crying because we had worked so hard to try to protect our patients and to try to even protect ourselves. And we feel that now this threatens all the progress that we made.
My question to the governor would be, whose water are you carrying? Very simple question. My constituents are telling me that even though wearing masks is an inconvenience and no one likes it, that we all know we need to do it to get through the pandemic, and we've come so far.
City leaders in Des Moines say they're keeping their mask mandate in place. Governor Reynolds' office says decreasing hospitalization numbers is what prompted the change. Next on This Week in Politics here on KSFY, Governor Noem addressing the state legislature, saying the state is in line for even more federal money than first thought. So what will they do with it? Welcome back to This Week in Politics here on KSFY. South Dakota state lawmakers will have an unprecedented amount of one-time money to work with for the next budget. During a budget address this week, Governor Noem says the state is looking at an additional $125 million at its disposal. That breakdown includes $51 million in one-time revenues and $74 million in COVID relief flexibilities. The governor says she wants lawmakers to focus on infrastructure investments such as expanding broadband internet access, repairing dams, and radio tower equipment.
I've told you many times that my mission is to make South Dakota safer and stronger and healthier for our kids and our grandkids. To do that, we need to take this perspective. Whatever action that we take with this money, it needs to fix something for 20 or 30 years or longer.
Governor Noem's budget address in December included more than $250 million in one-time funds. The new figures push that total now to nearly $400 million. A new bill would allow for a challenge to presidential executive orders. House Bill 1194 would authorize the Attorney General to seek an exemption or declare that the order is unconstitutional. It also says a state official cannot implement an executive order that restricts a person's rights if it refers to a public health emergency, regulation of natural resources, agriculture, or land use, or regulation of the Second Amendment. The bill follows a series of executive orders from President Biden, including one that revoked the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. Food trucks have become a growing trend nationally, especially with the ease it creates for takeout during this pandemic. Well, there is a new bill in Pierre that could affect how those trucks operate here in South Dakota. There are currently 21 food trucks that operate in the Sioux Falls area alone. This coming week, a Senate committee will take up House Bill 107. As of right now, food trucks are required to have a state license and must also get different licenses from individual municipalities. This bill makes it so only the state license would be required. Local governments would also be unable to require GPS tracking in food trucks. Another key item is that there can be no limitation on how close food trucks can park to other restaurants. The city of Sioux Falls currently has an ordinance in place that does just that in an effort to help brick and mortar restaurants.
We want to keep supporting food trucks, but we also want to make sure that we are